This is the Oscarthon, a show about one man on an absolutely mental mission to watch every Best Picture Oscar-nominated film ever, plus a few others thrown in along the way. Let's do it.
And here we go.
As you may be aware, the Oscars ceremony for each given year is held in February and celebrates the films of the previous year. So if someone was starting like a YouTube series about the Oscars, all they would have to do is look at when the ceremony took place and talk about the movies from the year before that, right?
Wrong.
The first Academy Awards were held in May of 1929, and with it being the inaugural event, they decided to honour films from the previous 2 years. So any movie from 1927 up until July 31st, 1928 could be nominated for Outstanding Picture. Despite this, only 3 films actually were. These were Seventh Heaven, The Racket, and Wings. Later on in this journey I'll be going over more than just the nominees because they alone don't give you a full overview, and I want to explore each year as though I was an average member of the public living in the time that these films were released. However, since you have no idea how hard it is to find films that go this far back, I'm sticking to just 4 for this year. Oh, by the way, did you know that the ceremony this year was only 15 minutes long? Yeah, the winners were all announced in advance, and the event itself was more of a formal dinner with a presentation ceremony shoehorned in. Nowadays we have speeches longer than that. I'm looking at you, Joaquin Phoenix, you wonderful long-winded man with your speech about the environment and saving the planet, and hey, no, don't play that music. I'm not So, to the nominees. Seventh Heaven is a film directed by Frank That Name, released in 1927. It tells the story of Chico, a Parisian sewer worker who falls in love with Diane, a prostitute, and also the girl of his dreams apparently. He saves her life by telling the police she's his wife, and they fall in love. But then the world is like, surprise war, and Chico goes away to fight. He does a bit of war, and eventually returns, and Diane is really happy to see him. Like, really happy. The film scooped 3 awards for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Actress, thanks to Janet Gaynor's portrayal of the aforementioned Diane. In terms of what I thought of it, I watched it, I kind of enjoyed it, and like most silent films, you just have to appreciate it for what it is. I'm going to be honest and say that like a lot of silent films, it's a little hard to get through because we're just not used to watching films like this anymore. And I don't want this to sound like I'm dismissing an entire genre outright, because I do want this show to be a positive celebration of cinema. But for what it is, it was interesting to watch. Next up we have The Racket. This 1928 silent crime film directed by Louis Milestone, who won Best Director for a comedy with Two Arabian Nights in this same year, became the first gangster film of many to be nominated for Outstanding Production, now known as Best Picture. Starring Thomas Megan as renegade police captain James McQuigg, who sets out on a mission to catch a mob boss who is being shielded by corrupt officials. The film was a hit with audiences and critics alike, but thanks to the portrayal of a corrupt police force and city government, the film and the play it was based on were both banned from Chicago. Sorry, boomers, what was that about millennials being snowflakes when you had a crime film banned because it hurt your feelings? The film itself, just like Seventh Heaven, is not too bad when you accept that you're watching a silent film and accept everything that goes along with that. Overall, I enjoyed watching this early crime flick setting the groundwork for what was to come in the genre. It did what you would expect and did it well. The cinematography was more practical than artistic, the dialogue is what you would expect, and I can't talk about colour or sound for obvious reasons. Can I say more than that? Probably, but I don't really think I need to. It's a silent crime movie. You'll probably imagine exactly what it is in your heads right now without even having seen it all the way through. Anyway, I have to get to talking about. So here we go. Wings. Best Picture, 1929. Directed by William A. Wellman, who truly just had an insane life. Seriously, just go and Google William A. Wellman and read his Wikipedia page. All I'll say is that it's not very often that you can talk about a man who directed an Outstanding Picture winner and list his confirmed kills, along with why he was expelled from school. Anyway, back to the film. The story follows 3 main characters. Jack Powell and David Armstrong, 2 men who see each other as rivals in their small town and who are both in love with Sylvia Lewis, played by Jabina Ralston. Our 3rd main character is typical girl-next-door type Mary Preston, portrayed by Clara Bow. Both men enlist to become pilots, with Jack believing that Sylvia prefers him to David, which she admits to David is actually not true. Meanwhile, Jack is being pursued by Mary, unbeknownst to him. Is everyone still following me here? Okay, good. After going through training and coming out the other side, the two men are now best friends, in the way that the two men who died in each other's arms in Pompeii were just friends, and are subsequently shipped off to France. Meanwhile, Mary has become an ambulance driver, and after hearing of Jack's reputation as the shooting star, finds him in Paris, although he doesn't recognise her because all Jackie's been getting soused, son. After putting him to bed, she changes out of her clothes to put on her uniform, and is barged in on by the military police, rude, who believe that she and Jack had been doing the business, and send her home. The film culminates in the Battle of Saint Michael. After being shot down, David steals a German biplane and tries to head back to Allied lines, but Jack spots the German plane and, fueled by the need for revenge, shoots it down. And like any good serial killer, Jack then lands his plane to take a trophy from his kill and realises his horrible mistake. David comforts him and tells him that he forgives him before passing away in his arms. I just realised I did my own bit of foreshadowing with the Pompeii thing earlier. Back in the US, Jack visits David's parents to return his possessions and beg for their forgiveness in what is actually a touching scene. Apart from the part where the mother hams it up a bit and I let out a giggle. Jack and Mary are reunited and fall in love, and they all live happily ever after. Except David. He's dead. The thing I found the most interesting about this movie wasn't the movie itself, but the making of it. This was in 1928, and yet this film included a brief second of nudity, a scene where two men kiss, and some public intoxication. In fact, the drunk scene was real. Despite being 22, Charles Rogers had never had alcohol before, and became what the kids today call shit-faced. Even more shocking was what went on behind the scenes. The film took 9 months to shoot, and after the cast all staying in the same hotel for that whole period, Wellman commented that by the time they left, all the elevator girls were pregnant. However, the most promiscuous appeared to be Beau, as she flirted with her cast members and the pilots hired to work on the film, as well as starting an affair with future Best Actor winner Gary Cooper, despite becoming engaged only 2 years prior to Victor Fleming, who would later go on to direct Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. What I liked the most about this film was it actually had a message in the end, which is best summed up by David's mom. That war is horrible and causes people to do things they regret is hardly the most groundbreaking message a film has ever had, but again, this is 1927. The fact that this is saying anything at all, in a time when simple love stories and surface level narratives are all the rage, should be acknowledged. Plus, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I will not be dissuaded from thinking that Jack and David had a little something something going on, so props for that. So is Wings the best picture of 1927-28? Well, no. And neither is Seventh Heaven. And neither is The Racket. The best film of this Oscar year is The Circus. The Circus is a 1928 film directed by Charlie Chaplin. It stars Chaplin as the tramp in, well, a circus. The film starts out with the tramp being framed for a crime that he didn't commit, and in the ensuing chase he ends up in the middle of a circus performance, causing hilarious mishaps in the middle of the performer's routines, leading to the ringmaster giving him the chance to audition. However, the tramp isn't able to be funny on command, tell me about it, and fails to land a job, until a couple of the performers quit due to not being paid, forcing the ringmaster to give him a shot. After becoming the star of the show by accidentally making a mess of it to the audience's delight, and befriending the ringmaster's horse-riding stepdaughter Myrna, played by Myrna Kennedy, he's able to use his newfound status to get a better wage and better treatment for her. When he hears a fortune teller tell Myrna that she will fall in love with a stranger close to her, he buys a ring and plans to propose, but soon finds out that she is actually attracted to the new tightrope walker Rex, played by Harry Crocker, causing his performances to suffer. The film then hits us with the tramp's highest and then lowest points as he subs for Rex during the show, earning him huge applause and praise from the crowd, but is then fired after he prevents the ringmaster from beating up Myrna. Myrna runs away from the circus, isn't it usually the other way around, to find the tramp, but putting his own desires aside, he in turn goes to find Rex so that he can marry her. The trio return to the circus to tell the ringmaster that Rex and Myrna are husband and wife, and the circus packs up and moves away. Realising he has no future with it, the tramp is left behind, ready to move on with his life again. So why is The Circus the real best picture? Honestly, it's the only film of this year that made me laugh, and the only one that I actually watched without wondering when it was going to end every 5 minutes. A lot of it is genuinely funny, and I think the creativity from Chaplin himself is on full display, making this easily one of his best comedy films. It's worth noting that the Academy felt he was worth an accolade for this movie too, as he was nominated in 4 categories, but subsequently removed from all of them, so that they could give him a special recognition award. But they didn't go far enough. Although I appreciate the work that went into Wings, especially the effects for the aerial dogfights, which were pretty spectacular at the time. Chaplin delivered more. Wings will be remembered because it won the first ever award for what we now call Best Picture. The Circus is remembered despite it not being on the official list of nominations anymore. Okay, so this is the part of the episode where I unleash my inner starlet, or star, I don't know why I immediately jumped to the female noun, and use my acceptance speech to thank people or things that I feel deserve a shout out. First of all, I want to thank Charlie Chaplin for putting in so much work. Not only did he direct The Circus and act in it, he was also responsible for producing it, for writing it, for editing it, and for composing the music. That is an insane amount of talent and hard work. I also want to thank William A. Wellman for showing little boys everywhere that you can be expelled for cracking a stink bomb over the head of your headmaster and still be an Oscar-winning director. Finally, I want to thank you, all of you, for watching this. Whether that's 5 or 50 people, thank you. And hopefully I'll see you next week for 1930, where we get a lot of people talking like this, see? I promise I won't do that again. I'm sorry.